let's talk about Labor then. Is anyone clearer on Labor's position on the TPP? Ben?
Yeah, look, I think we are clearer, and I think a lot of Labor activists who oppose the TPP might be a bit disappointed. They probably got on board this struggle with this kind of lofty intention of protecting Pharmac, keeping cheap cancer drugs, stopping companies from suing the government over environmental regulation, but they've ended up in this kind of cul-de-sac with Andrew Little where basically they're just fighting people with foreign-sounding names buying homes in Auckland again. Well,
Susie, Andrew Little was saying there that they're going to keep fighting, and he said they're fighting tooth and nail. Is that a bit of a hollow statement given it's this one element, foreign buyers, and can he really change that?
Well, this is the thing that is always going to be difficult for Andrew Little. In some ways, he's walking a tightrope when it comes to the TPP, because there are many in the party who are very much in favour of the free trade. They'll be supporting, very supportive of it. However, there is an awful lot of people who don't want it and feel that it's not actually going to be a particularly great thing for the nation. So what does he do? Well, I mean, in terms of his position, it doesn't seem to be an awful lot clearer, because he's been saying in the past he's going to flout the TPP, that he's going to renegotiate it. That seems to be where he wants to go. But in terms of what he would actually do if he didn't get what he wanted in a renegotiation, would he come out of it? I don't know. And also, where is Helen Clark's voice in all of this? Because she still has an awful lot of sway. People still hear her. And she was one of the very first people to initiate TPP in the first place. It's a very hard position
Michael,
for Andrew
isn't this your problem? People don't know, or people don't know what Andrew Little stands for. Are you being a bit timid?
Well, let me mount the full-mounted assertion of Labor's position. Labor is actually the only political party that has taken a view of the TPPA by saying we'll judge it based on what is in it. The government has been in their boots and all, whatever comes out of it, and other parties, of course, have pressured us to oppose it no matter what is in it. It's only Labor that actually said we'll judge it based on these principles of position, and then we'll look at what is in the agreement.
Yeah, but you've got 6,000 pages. You've got 6,000 pages now, so you know what's in it. And we
haven't quite had a chance to read it since it was released at midnight on Thursday night. But
I think it's unfair to say that Labor hasn't been consistent. They have been consistent, and they've managed to turn, a gigantic free trade agreement with huge economic benefits for the country, for our exporters, for our importers, for our consumers, into an assault on people with foreign-sounding names buying property in Auckland.
That's simply not accurate.
And I think that's important. I think that shows good leadership from Andrew Little, in that he is actually managing to hew a consistent line on something.
So he's been
extremely consistent about the sovereign right of a New Zealand government to make rules in relation to property ownership in this country. And what is a greater measure of sovereignty than your ability to control your own land?
So why
it's
not
a very consistent position, and it's a position most New Zealanders support.
Why not just support it then and just exercise your right to have a tax, a targeted tax?
Because, as Andrew said, there's a fundamental issue here about the right of our Parliament to make rules about our land. And most New Zealanders support that. That was a position that was set out at the beginning of this process. As Ben said, Andrew has stuck to it rigorously throughout this process. It's been pretty clear leadership, pretty consistent leadership. And there's sort of this criticism that Labor's picking and choosing a bit. Well, actually, our job is to try and get the best deal out of this. Yes, we do want the benefits, and yes, we do want to minimise the costs. And in this case, one of the costs should not be our parliamentary sovereignty.
But equally, he wasn't able to actually answer the question that Patrick Gower repeatedly put to him about whether, do you support it or not? You had your 5 bottom lines. The 5 bottom lines have been breached. At least one of them has gone. So does that mean that you no longer support it?
Well, Andrew said that when it actually comes to when Labor can have a say on it in a vote in Parliament, we will not vote for those things we do not support. And that's what you can actually do as a parliamentary party in the Parliament. It's how you vote that counts.
Ben's tisking and shaking his head.
As you pointed out, obviously in practical terms you could whack a 10,000% stamp duty on any foreign buyers of residential property. So in practical terms, what Labor wants is in the TPP, but this is a point of, you could say a point of principle, but I think it's more a point of rhetoric that Little wants to bring back the debate to this theme that he's trying to develop about foreign ownership, the Auckland housing market.
There's just one other thing
I want to move on and talk bigger picture about Andrew Little himself. Is he a slow burner, or is he just failing to fire in terms of the leadership? He's still sitting around 10% in the preferred Prime Minister stakes. He's
done a really good job of enforcing caucus discipline. Not to sort of bang a drum, but on the Chinese sounding the buyers issue. I mean, that's the kind of issue which would have had leaks all over the media, speculation about the leadership in July. But he managed to keep a lid on that. And the Labour caucus, if not the party, is very unified right now.
Susie?
Well, time is still on their side. They've still got 2 years, and there has been a great deal of stability. I would agree with Ben on that one. The difficulty, though, is that is stability going to be enough? Or does there actually need to be a bit of X factor, a bit of wow, a bit of interest? And perhaps we're beginning to hear some of that from what Grant Robertson was having to say about the future of work. Clearly, there are more ideas coming through that's being developed. It's a long time. You're not going to get major policy at this conference, seemingly.
No, but he did there just rule out capital gains tax, didn't he, in the first year, and obviously ditch the power policy as well. Stuff that, why, too complicated for people?
Seemingly it was that, but then also considering what Max Rushbrook was saying earlier on about wealth, it's interesting that these policies, which have sort of been in some ways cornerstone of Labour about wealth redistribution, are now off the agenda.
All right, we'll leave it there, but we will be back with a head start on next week's news right after the break.